In World War II, there was a class of ships called an LST. Stood for Landing Ship Tank. These ships could land 20 Sherman tanks on a beach, along with other personnel and lighter vehicles. The LST 325 is the only operable LST in the U.S. that goes out on yearly cruises. Normally, its home port is Evansville, Indiana. On September 18th, 2023, we took the day to visit it while it was on its yearly cruise. It was docked for a few days, this being its last day before it headed back home. It was in Hannibal, Missouri. But this video is not about our destination this day, but it is more about the journey I took to see this ship. I had previously thought about taking our boat up to Hannibal to see the LST, but I figured I'd have to get up super early to be able to make the trip, since I had to launch the boat, go through a lock which can take sometimes an hour or more, and I figured I'd just get up when we had already planned to go and not get up super early. But our dog decided to wake me up at around 5, so I figured since I was already up and I had enough time, I could go ahead and make the trip. So I went and hooked up to the boat, got launched by a little bit before 7, and was on my way. This is the view as I was leaving the boat ramp. As soon as I got out of the harbor, turned north, and I could see that I was in for a trip in the fog. The fog bank was a little over a mile ahead, and it looked pretty thick. I wasn't too worried about it because I have a VHF radio with AIS receiving capabilities, so I can see a vessel from about 2 miles in any direction, and the commercial vessels transmit their speed, heading, even their name, so you can tell who's about to run you over and how soon that's going to happen. Here we are arriving at Lock and Dam 22. I assume because of the water temperature at the surface being a little different after going through the dam, the fog was not nearly as thick, pretty well cleared off just south of the dam. But as I was getting into the lock, they opened the lower lock gates, I could see the fog from above the dams pouring over the lock, and by the time I got into the lock, it was all fogged in as well. I could hardly see from one end to the other of the 600-foot lock. They are in the process of replacing the gates here, and it looks like what they do is have some, I guess you'd call them cofferdams, to drop in place to block off the flow. Then they cut out the old gate and place the new ones in. That right there is a barge load of new gates. I think yeah, I guess they haven't replaced either of those. Just working on the one. I saw a video, may be able to link it, from the Corps of Engineers of how they cut those out and remove them. This is the only picture I took while I was in the lock. I was pretty busy keeping the boat off of the walls. When a small boat goes into the locks, they usually just have us float free. We don't tie up or anything, but I don't like dragging alongside the wall if I don't have to, so I usually try to stay out mid-lock so that I'm not scraping the fenders or scraping the rub rail of the boat up the side of the lock, because it's kind of nasty and rough. Now we're in pool 22, just north of the lock, and starting to get back into the fog. As you see, the coal train headed south. There's a little black shape just off of the starboard side, right at the edge of the screen. Zoom in here. That is a tree. As the camera focuses, you can see the root ball and the main trunk of the tree. And as we're getting back into the fog bank, just watch the lens of the camera getting the moisture condensing on it. So I had to put my camera down and switch to using my phone, because it doesn't fog up quite as bad. Over there is a towboat. I just caught a glimpse, but I can just barely hear his engine. I think he's holding right there for now. According to AIS, it shows him going upriver, but he's not. He's facing downriver. I better get off of here and not run into... A few seconds later, I almost did run into a anchored barge that was in the middle of the river just outside of the main channel. The channel kind of snakes around a little bit, and I didn't quite snake enough and almost found myself very close to a barge, but whenever I noticed a large rectangular shape directly in front of me, I realized that was not where I wanted to be. This is a picture that I had taken before the previous video of that downbound tow. And right in the middle of the screen you can just barely make out the towboat there. Let me see if I can find a filter that will make it a little bit more visible. Let's try this one. Ah, there it is. So, right there in the middle of the screen. I couldn't see it that clear, but just a dark object, and I could hear his engines running. A few moments later, I noticed another shape in the fog, and I recognized its silhouette as the LST. I wish I had turned around and got a video coming in out of the fog, but all I got was a few pictures, and then the video of going directly alongside from bow to stern, which was at the beginning of this video. I tied up at the marina and met up with my family who had come up by road, and we went and got some breakfast, then toured the LST. The trip on the way back was pretty uneventful, other than about a 45-minute to an hour wait to get through at Lock 22. There was a boat in the process of locking through when we got there, and they had to split their tow to make it through. So that took a little while, and by the time we got through, there was another downbound boat, which was a Corps of Engineers boat with one barge in tow. There was another upbound boat waiting on the other side to get up through, and about a mile or two south of that there was another upbound boat waiting to get through. So all the boats that had been shut down during the fog this morning all were getting to the lock at about the same time. But while we were waiting, we got to talk to a guy that was paddling the entire length of the Mississippi from the headwaters in Lake Itasca all the way to New Orleans. Like I had mentioned before, this was September 18th, and he had left Lake Itasca, he said, sometime in July, and was planning to be in New Orleans around or before November 3rd. There's the old gate. We are locking through with a canoe and possibly that Corps of Engineers boat back there. We have another upbound towboat on the way up on the other end that's waiting for us.